So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is David Olson with Workforce Solutions Capital Area, Director of Marketing and Communications. October is NDEAM, short for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And to help celebrate that, we've been hosting webinars every week in October to help raise awareness for Central Texas employers how to hire, train, and retain a workforce, includes Texans of all abilities. Joining us today from our healthcare partner Ascension is Jenny Lang, Interim Workforce Director. Going to talk about a special initiative they have called Project Search. So Jenny, over to you.
Great. Thank you, David. And thanks for everyone for joining and tuning in on a Tuesday. As David mentioned, my name is Jenny Lang. I serve as the Interim Director of Workforce Development for Ascension, Texas. And what I'd love to do is, it looks like we have a fair number of people here. I'd love to do what we usually do at Ascension, Texas, which is we usually start our meetings and our gatherings and anytime we get together and convene with a reflection. And today's reflection, I would love to offer a short video on Project Search at Ascension, Texas. So David, I'll let you cue that up.
Just delivered, so she'll be coming up in a little bit.
In 1996, the emergency department director at Cincinnati Children's Hospital noticed that they were providing care for a lot of young adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities. And she asked herself, why aren't we providing job opportunities for these individuals?
Project Search is a very important relationship with Ascension Seton. And we believe it's an industry-led best practice where we're able to work with different individuals with either intellectual or developmental disabilities and provide job training.
Fast forward to 2007, and we started a pilot at Seton Medical Center, Austin, with 6 interns.
I put together surgery sets, delivery sets. I even make deliveries. It's important to deliver these sets because patient care is a priority.
I set up the labs. I set up the mannequins. I put a lot of equipment out. It starts to get really hard to pull it in. It's pretty cool stuff.
We've actually graduated over 200 individuals through our partnership with Project Search. And for us, we've seen 91% of those students now enter the workforce and have meaningful work within and across Central Texas.
5 of the Project Search sites across Texas are right here at Ascension Seton. And we couldn't do that without our community partners, whether it is a school district, a community service provider, a mental health provider, the State Workforce Commission, and us as the employer. It takes a collaborative effort to ensure that we're focused on their skill sets and matching those with the business needs that we have.
I was just restocking the aisles and helping delivering packages when I first started here as an intern. Eventually moved on to this, where I am right now. And I'm actually happy to be here.
Project Search interns in my department basically are part of the team. They're part of what we consider our family. The biggest thing that the Project Search interns do in our department is they basically help us bring more of a feel of unity to the department.
They are becoming part of our family and ensuring that we help them take care of their families.
Well, it's important to me because it allows me to be independent. It allows me to pay my bills. It allows everything that the money provides.
And for us, it's fantastic for us to be able to support the community, but probably more importantly is we're giving these individuals life skills and meaningful employment.
Each of these individuals epitomizes our mission, which calls us to advocate for a compassionate and just society with our words and our actions.
When I got here, I was like, wow, this job is fun. Like, I love it. It wasn't like any regular job. And I just really like helping people, making a difference.
It just brought back that spark I was so desperately wanted to have. I'm always going to be thankful for this program.
When I first came to this job, I had no experience at all. But luckily, the staff here is very helpful and kind. They helped me along the way. They helped me with classes, and I love my job. I can't thank Project Search enough.
Wonderful, thanks. Thanks for letting me start with that reflection and kind of kick off our topic today, which is Project Search as an element of workforce development for us at Ascension, Texas. It's one way that we think about designing our workforce and the pipelines that we need of talented young people and talented individuals living in our community to access our jobs. And so we're going to talk more about that today. I'm really excited. So what you heard, and David, if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. Wonderful. What you heard as maybe some threads through that video is my colleagues and our leaders talking about really our mission here in Central Texas. As Ascension, Texas, we've been here for 120 years. And if you're someone who loves history like I do, you might like the photo at the top. That's the original infirmary of Ascension Seton when we came to this community by the Daughters of Charity coming here, and that's the first hospital in this area. And so that was in 1902. And if we skip ahead now, 120 years later, while a lot of things have changed, that building's no longer there. There are things that have not changed, and that's really about our mission here and really our ability to be advocates for a just and compassionate society with our words and our actions. And I love, one of our Daughters of Charity used to say, we're a community service organization that just happens to be in the specialty of healthcare. So I love that she put that in that way, and that's how I feel. So the work we do is far beyond the walls of any of our hospitals or sites of care. And I think Project Search is one of those ways that we look holistically at what can we do to help both our workforce and our collective Central Texas workforce here really move the needle on looking at talented individuals in our community. The other thing you might have heard mentioned in the video is really Project Search for us is workforce development at its truest, at its best. Our desire here within Ascension, Texas is that we want to be reflective of the community we serve. And we serve a pretty large footprint. We start in Waco, or we're up all the way from McLennan County and Waco all the way down to Hayes County, and then also east and west. So we have a pretty significant footprint at Ascension, Texas here in the region. And we know too that that area is growing. Our area is experiencing a lot of growth. And with that becomes a lot of growth in diverse communities and diverse populations, people with all kinds of experiences and backgrounds coming to our communities to live or already living here. And our goal is that we want to reflect that community back in our workforce. And through Project Search, and I say Project Search, but I really think Project Search can also be something that could be replicated even in populations outside of young people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So know that what the elements that we utilize through Project Search, I think could also just be really true elements of workforce development in any business and in any way of designing pipelines and pathways. So Project Search is for us a business-led best practice to train and prepare young adults with intellectual disabilities for the competitive workforce. And we do that, and it's a very articulated and very prescriptive somewhat way where we bring in young people who are in their last year of special education with local high schools, and we partner with a specific group of high schools here. And we bring them into our Ascension, Texas facilities, and they rotate through 3 different areas of our hospitals in a 1-year-long internship. And so they come to us usually in the fall when school starts, and then they end in the summer. And during that time, we build in 10 to 12 week rotations where they're experiencing operations of our hospital, and they're interning in different areas like the surgical services area or materials management. And they're building these really cool, complex skills to help layer into their professional portfolio. And a lot of these young people, this may be their first opportunity to engage in a workforce. Maybe they've spent a lot of time at home or in school, but yet they haven't stepped out and really tried out, any kind of competitive employment yet. We also work with young adults who maybe they have had some experience or exposure into a competitive workforce. But our goal is really to help them prepare and train as they leave that world of school and they enter into the next stage in their life. And for a lot of our young people, that next stage is competitive work. They may layer in other things later, like certifications or other school, but right now, what is important to them and to their families might be that competitive work. And so that's what we do through Project Search, is we help them build those skills to help enter into a competitive workforce, whether it be at Ascension, Texas, or in the Central Texas community with one of our business partners. So we started Project Search in 2007, and it really was by an honest call from someone in the community that said, how are you really thinking about including people with disabilities in your workforce? And we might have been asked the question many times before, and for whatever reason at that moment in time, it was really a way for us to pause and our leadership to pause and say, how are we being intentional about looking at our workforce and making sure we're being inclusive of young people with all kinds of skill sets? And so we were lucky or fortunate, I should say, to come across Project Search, which is a national best practice. It started at Cincinnati Children's Medical Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's now been replicated throughout the United States and throughout the world. We were the first in Texas in 2007, and we've been able to talk to other business and industry partners throughout Central Texas and beyond. And now Project Search in Texas has been replicated over 30 other times in other businesses. So I'm really excited when I get to talk to other businesses and really share a lot about what makes sense to us when we think about Project Search and when we think about a pipeline for young adults with disabilities into our workforce. So I was outside yesterday and I heard the Canadian geese flying over, and it was the first time this year so far, or this fall, that I've heard it. So I decided to add in a little element of what is now. And so this next section, I'm going to talk about 3 different ways that we started or we think about Project Search. And I'm hoping that maybe something might resonate with you. Always try it on for yourself. Never believe me. Try it out for yourself. And if it works, I hope something lands for you. But for us, what it started out with was that curiosity. What is it like to really design with intention a pipeline for young adults with disabilities? And so from that curiosity, we started to unpack what the world looks like in terms of employment for young people with disabilities. And we started considering, what would it be like to bring in 12 young people into an internship and start training them and preparing them for the workforce. And usually our Project Search cohorts throughout our internship, they're usually cohorts of anywhere from 8 young people to 12. But for this, I'm going to give you the example of, we started and we wanted to start with 12, and we started unpacking what would it be like to have this cohort within our hospital setting and start preparing them and training them for our operational needs. And what we found was there was a challenge in that. So we brought in 12 people, 12 young adults, and with them also came 12 vocational rehabilitation counselors, 12 job developers, and 12 job coaches or skills trainers. And sometimes these terms might be interconnected, but what we found was with each individual, they came with layers of support, a team behind them that also needed to be badged or come into our operations and learn a job and work with alongside the young adult as well. And while that's kind of the traditional vocational rehabilitation model, that didn't fare well when we thought about doing this for a hospital. And so we started to say, okay, what could we do differently and maybe utilize some kind of economy of scale and still bring in those 12 young people, but maybe see if we can do a more centralized or coordinated approach to it. So instead of that, we did Project Search. And with Project Search, there is one dedicated on-site team. So there's an instructor, there is usually 1 or 2 skills trainers or job coaches, and then there's usually a job developer or a career case manager. And that team is the support for our intern cohorts, our Project Search interns. And they show up every single day that the interns are there, and they become a part of our family at Ascension, Texas. So they learn the jobs just as much as our teams know them. They know the nuances of what it's like to work in healthcare operations. And really, they look no different or act no differently than the rest of our associates who work across Ascension, Texas. And for this reason, we know that this is a real best practice or an element that makes Project Search kind of stand alone when we think about workforce development, is that we've got that embedded team who is there working side by side, helping our interns learn their role, as well as helping our teams understand how an intern might fit into their operations. So it kind of works hand in hand. After we were curious about that, we started unpacking what it might be, and that led us to focus. And so what we started to focus in on is really internship development. Where did we want to really think about training young people with intellectual disabilities in our operations? And so we focused on problems. Well, I'll say first we focused on problems. And I love the quote by Einstein that says, "We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that we used when we created them." And so we started thinking about things a little bit differently. And we started looking at areas where we traditionally had a lot of problems or challenges or needs that were not quite getting met or things left undone. And so I'll offer to you some different areas where we honed in on. And one was in our clinical lab. There's a lot of paperwork. You might imagine if you've gotten lab work done, or if you've had someone that's had lab work done, there's just a lot of paperwork that goes along with those labs being processed. Well, you see on the left-hand side, that's a picture of one of our former interns. He's in the backs behind the scenes doing the processing of all of that paperwork for all of those labs. What we found out was when we were trying to create an internship there, they were backlogged, or they had a backlog of paperwork that was about 5 years long. So they extended into 5 years from now, they were still going to try to be, or still getting caught up on that paperwork. And they also found that the team there, a couple of the lab administrators, they were taking home those file folders that you see there. They were taking those home at nights and on the weekends, just trying to get caught up. And so we said, what if we had a Project Search intern or one of our interns that is really good at filing and would be able to maybe plug away at this. And we had an intern at that time that was really good at very quick filing and was able to do that really well by both numerical and through letters. And so you see our intern on there, and actually he got them caught up just through his Project Search internship. He got them caught up really quickly. I won't say he got through the whole 5 years right away, but he did get them caught up really quickly. What he also did is he got caught up in them hiring him to do that. And so they hired him, and he actually started then as an associate of ours, working in that clinical lab administration and still continuing to do the paperwork and file paperwork, but also expanded into other areas of the clinical lab. And then we have patient and safety issues, satisfaction issues. Again, you might imagine there are challenges sometimes in those areas when we look at what needs to be done or what is on people's plates. And what we found is a lot of our nurses and our care teams, they have lists of a lot of things that have to be done every single day. And you can also imagine that maybe not all of those things they're able to attend to, depending on our patient volumes. And so we were able to design an internship around some of those things that were really essential on their list, but maybe they weren't able to get to every shift. And it was something we could have one of our project search interns do. And the young man that you see on the screen there in the middle, he also got hired to do just that on one of our patient floors after he was an intern. He was able to go around and support that floor and that nursing team based on what they needed and they needed done. In fact, their checklist turned into his checklist. You see it on there, him performing that. And then also, maybe much like your business or your organization, we're held to standards, and there's certain things that as a hospital we need to comply with. And so we have the Joint Commission who does regular audits and surveys, and they're always making sure that we're staying on point with things that we need to be in compliance with. And we were able to design a lot of internships and opportunities based on some of those requirements that they have for us. And again, it might be a part of someone's job, but it might not be something that it gets attended to every day. And so you see the young man on your screen there. He is going around and filling at that time. In fact, you'll see him probably pop up here in the next little bit. There are seasonal flu kiosks. And so he's stocking them routinely and making sure that they're sanitized, which for a hospital, I'm sure you can imagine is really important. So those are just 3 different areas that we were able to look at problems and solve them through an internship rotation. And just to layer onto that, I think I talked about backlogs, critical tasks that maybe are either assigned or unassigned, areas where we're experiencing a lot of high turnover. A lot of times our young people that are coming in through Project Search, they're going in and transitioning into high turnover positions for us, and we're helping them support some of those areas. And then of course, areas where maybe our key staff has to be pulled away to deal with critical, patient type of situations where one of our Project Search interns might be able to support and do some of those other tasks as assigned. And I'd just love to point out, just on that same thing, this just came from a note from one of our teams, that they noted that our Project Search interns were really helpful during one of our Joint Commission surveys earlier this year. In fact, the young man you see on your screen, he's now hired at Ascension, Texas. He works at one of our hospitals. But before our visit, the Joint Commission visit, he was actually taking on extra assignments and extra responsibilities to help the hospital get up to par and up to speed on that visit, which usually not everybody wants to add things to their plate this day and age. But Ben, he was a really good example of one of our Project Search interns and now hires that was able to do that. And then lastly, what I'd love to say that we've learned a lot about is the shift that happens through Project Search, or what has been our experience. And really, this is a shift in moving together. And so I will tell you that I have sat on both sides of the fence. I have been involved in some of my career in helping young people find employment who have different and unique skills. And I've also been a part of the employment side and the business side. And what I know to be true about Project Search and the way that we operate things, it's that it does require a shift from kind of the social service or school approach to employment and really over to a business mindset or a business driven mindset. So really shifting the lens into what is a business need. We always talk about what do we need to fill our business needs and how can we maybe do that with one of our Project Search interns. And so it's definitely a shift from kind of the supportive service idea and support. And so when we talk about filling a business need and that shift to a business mindset, we always approach developing internships much like I just talked about, looking at problems or opportunities, but also looking at where are some of our really high volume areas that need things done routinely and that have the potential, if we found the right match, to hire someone. And you might assume or imagine our workforce needs are great right now. We need a lot of people in frontline positions as well as in skilled positions. So, there's a lot of opportunities to design rotations, and I've listed a few of the areas that we've been able to consistently develop rotations built on operation need. So in our pre-op and PACU and surgery, sterile processing, our pharmacy, health information, and all of these areas offer something different. We like to layer on different complex skills for people to build, interns to build. So notice, I will say that, when we first started, there was the idea of maybe looking for areas which might be easy to train people in, but that's something that quickly shifted for us, that places where maybe we had the bias that it was an easy place for someone to learn wasn't necessarily true. It was actually a somewhat of a harder area. Things like nutrition services or dietary services. That's a really hard place to train young adults on how to do some of those tasks. And so while we do have a lot of interns there and we now have hires there, that wasn't necessarily one of the first areas that we wanted to train people in. We looked for areas that were highly complex that maybe we could build a system out of. And I'd really love to point out that this is all done in collaboration. So the social service, the school, and the business and others, this really does take a village to pull off Project Search and this type of workforce development that I'm talking about. And we truly could not do it without our partners. I've listed them here. Our Texas Workforce Commission, our Texas Workforce Solutions, Goodwill, the independent school districts that we work with, and then of course our local mental health developmental disability authorities like Bluebonnet Trails and Integral Care. Those are just some examples of how we collaborate, and some of that teamwork that I talk about that happens with that team that's embedded at the site, that comes through this intense ability to collaborate and pull this off as one big group. And finally, we'll put it all together. And I'm really proud to say that because of that collaboration and because of Ascension Texas really saying, let's have a radical focus on employing people with disabilities, from 2007 to 2021, so last year, we've graduated over 300 young adults from Project Search. And we've had an employment outcome of 91%. So that means 91% of the young people who have graduated from Project Search at Ascension Texas are either getting hired within one of our hospital sites, or they're getting hired in the Central Texas community And again, they're leaving with these really outstanding resumes and portfolios and networks of professional, references that they've built in their year long with us, and they're going and applying and they're getting jobs in the community as well. So I'm really excited to share those outcomes with you. We've also, for the business people that might be listening in or attending, I'd love to share that we've also had a return on investment. So our Project Search interns are, when they're with us during their rotation time, during their internship, they're contributing to the operations of our hospital. They're doing things that make sense to the daily operations. And then we've had a return on investment of their productivity and their productive time in those rotations of over $2 million. So it's spoken a lot to the operations of our hospitals and making sure that we get done what needs to be done. And one of the last things I'll say is oftentimes I get asked, do the Project Search interns, once they've completed, do they get, a channel into, a certain kind of job, or do they just naturally get a job once they graduate? And it's no. The answer is no. Our goal and our job as Project Search staff and teams and administrators here at the hospital, our goal is to remove the barriers, not the competition. So they're still competing for jobs with everybody else. They just have this really great experience they've already had with us, and so they're bringing that to the table. And that is really what I have for you. I'll close with saying that for 15 years, Project Search has really given us at Ascension, Texas, a best practice in workforce design. It's built this strong channel and this strong pipeline for us to be able to reach into some untapped talent that we have in this community, young people with intellectual disabilities, who are also looking for opportunities of employment. And it's become a win-win, a balance of skills for us, and I believe for our community. The young man that you see on your screen here, his name is Walter. He was a part of one of our early classes of Project Search, and he now works in our lab. But he works on more of the specimen part of the clinical labs, I'll say, and he's been with us for a number of years. And our team, in fact, I think Dina is here today, but our team was just telling me they were visiting him, and he was so excited to share that his name was now listed on the door along with his managers. They had just updated the system and gotten everybody's name on the door. And he was really excited that that had just happened for him. I would be too. So he is a graduate of ours and really a long-term associate now, and a great example of what Project Search is. So I'll pause, and Jessica, I don't know if there's any questions or anything I need to do.
Hi, Jenny. That was fantastic presentation. We do not have any questions in the chat.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to pass it over to David Olson to wrap up the webinar. And for everyone attending, this was recorded and will be shared out with participants later.